Okay, here we're going into the WITS Medical School. We're going to look at the bones of a giant that were found in the 1960s in Namibia. This is my old university where I graduated from. And you know what? I haven't been here since 1983 and nothing seems to have changed. It still looks the same.
How about that? That is a femur, and it's from Bergarcus in the Otavi Mountains of northern Namibia. We don't know exactly how old it is, but in my experience, having traveled through museums around the world, I have never seen a human femur this big. If you have an explanation as to why one individual should have such a large femur, I'd be interested.
Yes, because he was a giant.
Okay.
What is your estimation on the size of this individual?
Well, I have wondered whether the size relates to Hox genes, regulator genes. You can have a gene that's turned on or off, and it controls growth and development. I'm not a geneticist, but I know about the HOX2A gene in particular.
Yeah. And
the HOX gene will determine shape and size of bones. And who knows, maybe in an individual of Homo sapiens, a femur like this one, was given the opportunity to develop this enormous size. It's Homo sapiens, been described as Homo
Definitely.
sapiens. Yes.
The whole structure.
Yes, it's anatomically modern human.
And date-wise?
We don't know.
No way of finding out.
No way. Unfortunately, miners have been involved with the discovery more
Didn't
than
realize it was valuable.
40 years ago, I think it was. And it was reported that there was more of this individual. And sadly, it wasn't collected immediately. Philip Tobias was notified, and this was brought to WITS. But we don't know more other than it comes from the Bergarcus formation in the Otavi area in Namibia, which has become famous for another reason. Otavi has deposits which are 10 million years old. This isn't 10 million years old. This is Homo sapiens. But in deposits that have breccia, like Sterkfontein, sand that's covered bone, discoveries were made of various primates going back something like 10 million years, and one jaw which was called Otavipithecus. Otavipithecus is an old primate that could be a very distant relative of all humankind, going back 10 million years. So that's what Otavi is now famous for. But this certainly needs attention.
And the size compared to a human femur?
Oh, we can do that. We can get a...
I was going to tell
I'm going to put your hand there.
silly question.
Well, I'll beat you to it.
I'm going to say, put your hand there. At least you get some comparison.
Yeah.
Was this the one that I heard that Lee Berger
Yes, I've got
showed on something?
Yes, I got a photograph of Lee Berger showing this,
You have?
but it's difficult to determine, until you see it yourself. So you say that it was found in sediments that were determined to be about 10 million years old.
That's in the case of Otavipithecus.
Otavipithecus, not this one. Okay.
No.
Okay.
We don't
This is
know
recent.
how old it is. Here's for comparison.
Oh my God.
Gosh.
No, that's.
That's chalk and cheese. I must get you the other one. Corresponding.
So I mean, it's like twice the size.
Oh, it's more.
Yeah.
It's more than twice the size.
Unfortunately, I don't seem to have the other side.
Because all of humankind, from Scandinavia down to tip of South America,
Wow.
have stories of giants.
Well, that's still the wrong side.
So is this the right side that we're looking at?
We're looking at the other side.
The other side, okay.
I haven't been able to find a counterpart. But yes, you can see the femoral head is so much.
So I mean, essentially, if one had to just take a wild guess, you could say this thing is twice the size of a human.
I would say 4 times.
I mean,
3 times.
would I be completely out of line?
I would say 3 times.
That's fine. We can do this. And we do that, and we say twice.
Twice the size.
Yeah, but it's not, because its actual volume is a lot more than twice.
I would say yes.
3 or 4 times.
In terms of the dimension of the femoral head, it's in the order of twice.
Twice is this, twice this, twice this, in all directions.
But you're right, volumetrically,
It's
the
4 times.
femoral head would be bigger.
So he could be 4 times the height.
Very big.
Let's
Wow.
overdo it. Say twice.
Twice is good enough for
Twice is
me, you
big
know.
enough. I don't know
So
anybody who's
basically,
twice that size.
so we're dealing with potential evidence here that there were humanoids or human-like beings running around here that were twice the size of what we are today.
Large humans, and I would say within the last 100,000 years. I would guess, because we've got archaeological evidence for the presence of Homo sapiens, the species to which we all belong, within the last 10,000 years. And I'll show you one skull from Border Cave, which is near Swaziland, the border between KwaZulu-Natal and Swaziland. That's in the order of 10,000 years. We've got good evidence for our species, Homo sapiens, within that time frame. So I would say that this is less than 10,000.
But only 10,000. We haven't got further than that.
100,000, I think, 100,000.
Okay, that's 100,000.
Within the last 100,000 years, we have evidence for Homo sapiens.
You see, I'm just thinking of Tobias's conference he had at Sun City with the geneticists.
Yes.
And that is just to correlate
You
those
were at the
two.
Dual Congress, right?
I wasn't there, but
Right.
I was very interested to find out what happened.
Okay, so is there anything else of
Really,
interest?
really brave.
Yes.
Anything else of interest that you can tell us? I've just been shooting a video clip now. I'll just take a few still shots if you don't
Okay,
mind.
I'll pull out a skull.
Okay, great.
Interesting.
I think there's a skeleton in
So this is Philip Tobias's office and laboratory and stash, I guess. This man here.
Okay, this is a partial skull. I'll remove the label. Put the skull. This is a skull thought to be Middle Stone Age, in the order of 100,000 years or slightly less, from Border Cave on the boundary between KwaZulu-Natal and Swaziland. Raymond Dart and Philip Tobias were involved with excavations at Border Cave. We know from the artifacts that this was a time of innovation, with new stone tools being used within the last 100,000 years. Peter Beaumont worked at the site. The skull had been found in the course of the early excavations. So this is really a specimen of Homo sapiens which is not unlike modern Homo sapiens that we have today. If we had a femur, I should think that the femur would have been similar in size to what I'm holding. We're currently doing a DNA project on this skull. We had 3 colleagues from Sweden, from Uppsala University, and we sampled milligrams of bone of this skull. And we had a clean laboratory. Normally what you do is you take the fossil to a laboratory and you work in ultra clean conditions. What they did with us was to bring a clean laboratory in the form of a tent. We had the tent situated there. The skull went in, and it was then under sterile conditions, and we sampled a few milligrams of bone, and we are hoping to look at DNA of this individual. We haven't got the results yet, but ancient DNA has been found, for example, in Neanderthals in Europe.
As old as that, though.
Mhm.
So is there a reason why they haven't tried to sample DNA from the big femur?
Would you like to work on it? Happy to have you as a collaborator.
I've got some friends that have got labs that do DNA sampling.
This has been understudied. I don't think that it's been studied in great detail. It's really unfortunate that we don't have more of it.
Yeah.
But it's worth pursuing.
So would you be prepared to go down that avenue?
Of course.
Take a leadership in that research?
Well, we'd collaborate. How about that?
Well,
be happy to work with you.
Well, last year I sort of tackled Lee Berger
Oh, yes.
on
giants. Yes.
And
And
I
did he
said-
show you this?
No, that's
No.
why I got hold of you.
Oh, all right.
He's too busy. But I said that we needed to advertise 90 years of WITS, opening up to the world what we've got and inviting them to come. And I honestly believe...
When I gave the lecture on Piltdown, among other things,
No.
no? Was that another?
And I approached you when you spoke about Shakespeare.
Oh, Shakespeare.
Totally different subject. But he also dealt with a skull at some stage.
Yorick, alas, poor Yorick, I
Yes.
knew him well.
Yeah. So there's a quick question I want to ask you while we on this skull. What is your take on the Boskop skull?
And that's the other one I asked.
Yeah.
There is certainly a lot of variability in the species that we call Homo sapiens. And in the time of Robert Broom and Raymond Dart, various individual specimens were classified. And so there was a Boskop type named after one specimen, which we don't have here.
Yeah.
There were other varieties, and we now recognize it today to be part of the variation expected within a single species. But particularly Robert Broom was keen on the Boskopoid and other varieties, but we don't use that term anymore.
Yeah. Okay. I was fortunate enough when I was at the museum, they took it out. I went with a friend of mine who's a professor at the university there, and they opened it up. They brought it from a box in the vault, and it's not even on display. So I was really sad to see, just like this bone isn't on display, to show, wow, look at this amazing stuff we got here.
Okay, well, what we are planning to do in our new vault, which will be on the main campus of the university, the Witwatersrand, we will have the opportunity to have some specimens in cabinets, so we can have dignitaries and the general public coming in on occasion to see special objects. And I'll show you the tongue child, which we also have in the little vault.
This is a serious vault you've got here.
But you can
This is fantastic.
replicas of them for the public.
Oh, it's true. We do
You
that.
must.
We have a museum.
This is too bad.
Well, it is special. And
Because you haven't researched it yet. You really don't know enough about it. Like DNA and aging and things like that.
So if we, for example, were to agree to collaborate on some research on this, how would we go about this? To set up
number
a...
one, write a little proposal. We
Right.
have this, and we could ask particular questions.
Yes.
The possibility of getting a date should be considered. It is mineralized, so the possibility is that we don't have any radiocarbon. Carbon 14 relative to carbon 12 gives us an age up till about 40,000 years ago. My guess is that this is sufficiently mineralized to be probably outside the range of radiocarbon. But there are techniques now using uranium, so why not? We'll put in a proposal to try a date,
Yeah.
and we could do a detailed morphological analysis. That would be a first stepping stone.
Yeah.
We could try to get an estimate of body size. I've already done this on femoral necks in relation to other dimensions, like the complete femora.
Yeah.
You know, one of my first projects, way back in 1971, Philip Tobias gave me access to the collection of human skeletons, which later became the Dart collection. And I had interests in the relationships between the length of the femur and orbit height, because we recognized orbit height might be a proxy for the dimension of, well, body height dimensions. And to test it, I measured countless numbers of femora in 1971. I was just out of school. I was at the Transport
And did it
Museum.
sync up?
It worked out beautifully.
That's awesome.
But 1971, you have to remember, there were no computers,
No.
there were no calculators.
Yeah.
And I wanted to publish, and I was just, you know, it wasn't even an undergraduate, I was just out of school. But Philip Tobias and Bob Brain were very supportive. They recognized that I was onto an interesting project. And I was able to show from a drawing that there was a pattern to the results, that there was a relationship between the length of a femur and the height of an orbit.
That's amazing.
So what you could do is then go to a Mrs. Ples's skull,
Yeah.
Australopithecus, measure the orbit height and estimate body height. And I did have a short manuscript on that.
That's a fascinating study. I love that.
But Philip Tobias was very keen. I mean, even though I hadn't begun university, he gave me access to the collections.
You're lucky. You're very lucky.
Yeah,
He
and
really
I had
was
the
a student when he saw it.
Yeah.
I had the support of Bob Brain, and I met Herta de Villiers, who worked on this skull at about that time. Herta de Villiers was part of the Department of Anatomy, and I remember coming in and being very much in awe of all these great men, Raymond Dart, Tobias, and others. And Herta de Villiers turned to me and said, "Mr. Thackeray, we are expecting great things from you."
And it seems like they were right.